Hi everyone, I'm back. I'm Bethany with Expat Insurance Services, and I am here to educate people on the topic of health insurance and private hospitals and how it works in Mexico, because it's a very important topic that people ask me a lot of the same questions over and over. So I'm here to share my education and my experience and answer questions to help people. So today's topic is regarding pregnancy and maternity coverage. So many times I receive a phone call or an email saying, hey, I need to get insurance, I'm pregnant. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. If you are already pregnant, it is unfortunately considered a condition and pre-existing condition that won't be covered. Almost all the plans that I am aware of that cover maternity have and pregnancy related expenses, it has a 10-month waiting period. So there is never any circumstance that I am aware of where you can get insurance and have it start covering you right away. So if you are planning on having a baby abroad, it's very important to think about timing and when to get your insurance to help cover those expenses. Now, of course, not everything is planned all the time, so hopefully this information is going to be helpful for you for what to expect. Now, as I mentioned, there's a 10-month waiting period on almost all the plans that I'm aware of. So what that means is if you get insurance and then you become pregnant before that 10 months is up, is that part of your pregnancy will be covered after you've met that 10-month waiting period. So you don't have to wait the full 10 months, but if you want to have coverage for the whole entire duration of the pregnancy and the delivery at the end, then you do need to get insurance right away and wait that full 10 months. So for example, if you are already pregnant, it's not going to work, because if you're 2 months pregnant and you get the insurance, obviously you're going to deliver the baby before the 10-month waiting period. If you get insurance and then you get pregnant 6 months later, you now have a 4-month waiting period before your maternity expenses and your delivery would be covered. So keeping that in mind, it's important to plan as much as you can. This is very important. Not every policy is the same if it has maternity coverage. Some plans don't have it at all. So you want to make sure, if it's a possibility for you, that you are on a plan that does have some coverage. And you need to know they all have limitations. It's not going to be unlimited. So it's very important to look through the conditions of coverage and see what specifications there are for what the limits are for coverage. Some of them I've seen cover maternity and the limit is so low, it's almost like, well, what's the point of that? Most of them do not cover huge amounts either. But it's important because if you have anything that is beyond a normal delivery, if you have any kind of complications for yourself or for the baby, that's when the insurance becomes critical and very important. Because to be honest, I always say that expenses are not cheap when it comes to medical expenses in Mexico, because people think everything is so cheap. And that's another video that I'm doing. But when it comes down to delivering a completely normal pregnancy and delivery, in my opinion, it's not that expensive. It depends on what your definition of expensive is. And I don't want to put prices in these videos because as time goes on and based on location of where you're at in Mexico, it could vary. So feel free to reach out to me for examples or more questions. But for a normal standard delivery, it's not super expensive. If you have a complication for yourself as the mother carrying the child, insurance is very important. If there is something going on with the baby during the pregnancy or during the delivery, then a lot of the insurance companies will cover a significant amount for complications. So that is something very important to consider. Now, another thing that is important to consider when it comes to delivery and giving birth to your baby is that not all insurance plans are going to automatically include your baby. So that's a very important question that you need to research before picking a plan if you're planning on looking for maternity coverage. So you might have a plan that will cover you after the 10-month waiting period, but the baby needs to go through underwriting in order to be added onto the plan. So that means that there needs to be no complications or any conditions that the baby is born with, which hopefully that's the case. But if your child has a condition, you don't want them to not be able to get insurance. So make sure you have a plan that is going to have automatic inclusion of the baby if it's born with any conditions. So that's one plan, is that you need to find out if it's going to cover any conditions if the baby's born with, that the baby That's one thing, is that you need to make sure that the plan is going to cover any conditions that the baby is born with, and that the baby can automatically be added onto the plan without having to go through underwriting. So if everything is fine, baby's healthy, you still need to actually physically add the baby within a specific amount of time. So make sure that you're aware of that and you don't let it slip your mind and then all of a sudden the baby doesn't have insurance. So I hope that these things are helpful with helping you understand how it works. Many of the plans have a deductible that you have to meet first. So you're going to plan on paying that expense related to the maternity. Some plans have a deductible waiver for maternity. I mean, there's lots of different options when it comes to maternity. So make sure that you're talking with a broker that's going to really help you understand this. But typically, you're going to have a deductible, so you're going to be paying for some of those expenses. So keep that in mind. And if you've had an experience of giving birth to a child in Mexico and you want to share any of those, or if you have questions or story that you might want to share with people, feel free to put it in the comments, or reach out to me and I can add it to this video or make another video, because I feel like we're all here together in this experience of living in a foreign country, or even if you're a national. I mean, a lot of nationals are from Mexico and they get private insurance because they would like something better than what's available with the public system. That's another question, and another video I've had is the private hospitals versus the public. And sometimes people don't plan ahead and they're like, oh, I'll just give birth in a public hospital. But that, you always have that option, but you need to make sure your Spanish is good and you need to make sure that the facility is up to your standards. In some places in Mexico, the facilities are okay, especially if it's giving birth to a child with a normal delivery. But when you get into complications and serious emergencies, that's when most people, including myself, would prefer to be at a private hospital and not the public. So it's a little bit of your own personal decision. Any of my experiences with the public hospital, I prefer private. So keep that in mind. But again, if you have experiences that you want to share, I would love to add these to the resources that I'm putting. So make sure to always leave comments or write me personally any topics that you would like to be discussed on these videos, common questions. Again, we're all in this together. I'm happy to relay the information to help educate people on their options so that they can plan if there is an emergency or any big medical expenses. So I'm Bethany with Expat Insurance Services, and I'll see you in the next video.